Hey guys, this is Trevor Sullivan. I just wanted to take a few minutes today to show you a really cool feature in Linode, which is a virtual private server service that I've used for a number of years. There's also a number of other great VPS services out there like DigitalOcean, but I just happen to use Linode Manager. I don't have anything against any others, but this one's just worked really well for me for a long time. They've shown themselves to be pretty trustworthy, they've been very reliable, and their pricing scheme is pretty fair. They bill hourly for virtual machines. They have a bunch of different sizes. You can get started with very inexpensive VPS sizes like a single CPU core and 1 GB of RAM for less than a penny per hour, which is pretty cool. And they've also been working on a new cloud interface as well. So they call it, instead of Linode Manager, their old user interface, they now have a new Linode Cloud Manager interface, which is much more, I would say, responsive. It just works a lot more nicely than the traditional manager interface, which just kind of looks a little bit dated and uses some outdated design principles. And I think just navigation and usage of this new portal is a little bit easier. But in this video, what I wanted to share with you was a really cool feature called stack scripts in Linode. And if you're developing a stack script, how you can iterate on it in a fairly expensive fashion without having to launch a new Linode every time you want to test it. So basically a stack script is, if we go over to manage stack scripts here, you can see I have one. Basically a stack script is a script that you want to launch at startup of a new Linode instance. So if I was to spin up a new Linode VPS, I could automatically install software, perform configuration steps, send notifications, whatever I want to do from that stack script I can do. You can call Bash, I believe you can call Python and other scripting languages, maybe Ruby, Node.js, whatever you really want to do. It's basically just a hook for you to hook into the boot process. Now, because there's two different interfaces here, I want to call out some differences between the classic manager interface and the new cloud interface that I've got right here. Now, stack scripts are technically supported in both interfaces. So as you can see, I can see my SSH public key script in the old Linode Manager interface as well as in the cloud interface that they're moving to. However, there is one limitation. So when you are rebuilding a Linode, so let's say I've got a Linode here. If I rebuild that Linode, then I don't have the ability in the new cloud interface to select a stack script that I want to rebuild from. It's just going to rebuild from a base image that you can select, which is provided by Linode themselves. So the key thing that I want to point out here is that if you want to iterate on your stack scripts, so you want to make a change and let's say maybe add a comment. So we've just made a change. And you can see my revision history down here at the bottom. So I'm just going to add a random comment. Doesn't make any functional changes to my script. But I can't redeploy or rebuild a Linode from that same stack script in the new interface, in the new cloud interface. So what you want to do is, if you want to rebuild your Linode, let's go ahead and add a new one first. So I'm just going to use the nanode size because that's the cheapest one. I'm going to put it in the CA region is fine because that's closest to me in Washington State. And so that'll spin up here in a second. And then what I can do is, after that's been deployed, I can come into rebuild. So you have rebuild here and you have rebuild over here. But the difference with rebuild in the classic manager interface is that I can now choose to deploy using a stack script. And so I can choose stack scripts that are provided by the community and from Linode themselves. Or up in the top right corner here, I can actually select one of my stack scripts that I've created under my account and then choose which operating system image I want to deploy from. So using this rebuild interface in the Classic Manager portal, I can test my changes to my stack script without having to launch a new Linode instance. Now, why would I want to do that, you might ask? Why don't I just delete the Linode and then launch a new Linode? Well, the reason that I would want to rebuild instead of launching a new Linode is that Linode charges based on the hour. So if you are rapidly iterating on your stack scripts, and maybe you're making changes in a matter of minutes instead of, waiting hours to redeploy, you might want to test those changes very quickly. And so rebuilding is going to keep the same Linode, and it's going to be on the same billing interval that it started with. So rather than running a Linode for 10 minutes and paying for the full hour, and then deleting it and then spinning up another one and paying for the full hour, etc., we can actually just reuse a single Linode instance for as long as we're building and testing our stack script, and make sure that we get the full hour that we're paying for on the Linode instance. So I'm going to go ahead and rebuild this one here. So I just built this from a base image that was provided by Linode. But I'm going to go ahead and rebuild it and say deploy using stack scripts. I'm going to choose my stack script here. And then you can see I've actually configured my stack script to only be applicable to certain operating system images. So this script only works with Ubuntu operating systems, and I was able to limit the stack script to only Ubuntu images provided by Linode. So that's why you don't see things like Arch Linux or Fedora or Red Hat or CentOS showing up here, because in my stack script configuration, I've limited it. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the latest Ubuntu 18.10 there. I'll plug in a root password, do rebuild. And it looks like it wants me to plug in a more complex password. And there we go. So now under the classic interface, you can see that I have a configuration profile associated with this particular Linode. It's recreating the disk from the base image, the Ubuntu 18.10 base image, and applying my stack script to it. And then once that's ready, I can go ahead and boot the Linode from the new disk that was created with my stack script, and it'll automatically execute. And it's waiting to boot because it hasn't actually finished the disk provisioning yet, but as soon as that finishes in a few seconds, it'll go ahead and boot my system up. And then we're actually going to pull up the console interface so that you can see it actually executing the stack script. So while that's rebuilding, I'll come over to the remote access and choose the Lish via browser. So this is basically a remote access console to the console interface, and there it is. It just came up. The Grub bootloader is in front of us. It's counting down. It's going to launch Ubuntu. And then after the initialization here, you'll see on the next screen, it actually executes my stack script. So there's stack script starting up. And I now get the login interface. So I just wanted to share that really quickly with you. Basically, the key takeaway from this video is that you can rebuild your Linode, and not only rebuild it just from one of their base images that they provide, but you can also deploy it using your own custom stack scripts and rebuild it instead of launching new Linodes. I hope this video was helpful. I hope you enjoy the Linode service. If you would like to support this channel, feel free to hit me up on Patreon. I have a Patreon page where you can set up recurring donations if this training content is valuable to you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.